Ne Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
My final argument depends not on the interpretation of texts, but on the immutable truth of history itself. Even more surely than scripture or inspired traditions does history reveal God's will. Once, the Jews had a mighty organization with a temple in Jerusalem, the wonder of the world. But God decreed that that temple should be razed to the ground, and that in its place Christ's church should arise and be made great, with its center in Rome and its great cathedrals in many lands, each one outshining the temple in the height of its glory. And what of the Jews? They have become slaves and exiles. Is not this the strongest proof of all that the Messiah has come? That they have lost, that Christ's church is triumphant? The Messiah has come, and the Christian church is the living proof. Let the Jews cease to swim against the tide of history. Instead of dragging out a miserable and persecuted existence that can only become more and more wretched as time goes on, let them join in the triumph of the church. The Jew turned his face against the Messiah when he came, and now God turns his face against them. As a Jew, I suffered under that curse, but Jesus Christ released me. God's church is merciful, the door is still open. Before it is too late, let the Jews enter in, and throwing themselves on his infinite mercy, share in God's manifold blessings.
Your Majesties, I must say at once that Brother Pablo's arguments have left me entirely unconvinced. That the Messiah has come, says Brother Pablo, is proved by the triumph of the Church. We are now living in the Messianic era prophesied in the Bible. Glory was prophesied, and glory is here, in the shape of the Pope and priesthood, cathedrals and mighty rulers. Is this indeed Messianic era? When we read in the Bible of the prophecies of Isaiah and Ezekiel and Zechariah about the coming of the Messiah, what is the most obvious thing that strikes us? It is that the coming of the Messiah will make the world a different place. Instead of a world of strife and bloodshed, of ceaseless agony and famine and warfare, there will be a world of peace and goodwill, a time of Sabbath, when the swords will be beaten into plowshares and the wolf will lie down with the lamb, and the peace of God will reach to the four corners of the earth. This is the time of the Messiah to which we Jews look forward, when the apparently meaningless agonies of the past will all prove to have had meaning after all, and true history will begin, and our struggles will prove to have been the birth pangs of a better world. But what has happened? Over 1,200 years since the birth of Jesus, I look around the world. Is it a world of peace? Have the swords been beaten into plowshares? No, the world is more full of war than ever, and the most warlike of all the peoples, whose fierceness is greater than that of wolves, is the people of Christendom, the followers of Jesus. Your Majesty is a great king in Christendom. Your knights in armor clash like thunder. You have your foot soldiers and archers and engines of war. If you believe that the Messiah has come, why do you not dismiss all your soldiers and enter the peace of God? The world is full of war and armies. Not far away are the armies of the Muslims. Beyond them, the armies of the Mongols and the Tartars. And beyond them, who knows what other armies? Where does it say in the writings of our prophets, which you say you believe, that the coming of the Messiah will bring not love but hate, not peace but war? Another point. The coming of the Messiah, according to all the Hebrew prophets, was to be a time of justice. I look around the world which you Christians have made of your faith in Jesus. Is it a world of brotherhood and equality? There is no Jewish aristocracy, no Jewish slavery. No Jew is lord over Jews. No nation on this earth, except ourselves, has learned to live this way. Have you a higher standard of justice to teach us? What has happened to the new heart of which Ezekiel spoke when he said, I will give you a heart of flesh instead of a heart of stone? If this is the new world of which the prophet spoke, it would have been better if they had remained silent.
Your Majesty, I must speak.
We Christians are never nearer to Christ than when we suffer oppression, as Christ himself suffered. A slave can come to Christ as well as, or better, than an emperor.
That is a very comfortable doctrine for oppressors to hear. I do not believe that anyone is better for being a slave.
Freedom and equality must wait for the second coming.
So it seems that all the real benefits of the coming of the Messiah are left for the second coming.
The first coming has not been without its benefits.
Ah, yes, the triumph of the church. Brother Pablo made a great point of this, and of the failure and suffering of us Jews. You Christians make a great mystery out of failure, and talk of your suffering Messiah, whose failure proves his divinity, and then say that our suffering means that we are accursed. The failure and suffering of the Jews was predicted by the Hebrew prophets, and they also predicted that a time would come when the nations would acknowledge that the Jews have suffered for the sins of the world.
It is Christ who suffered for the sins of the world, not the Jews.
And so it was foretold by the prophet Isaiah.
I say that the suffering servant depicted by Isaiah was not Jesus, but the Jewish people. And the suffering servant is still in your midst, and you followers of Jesus are his chief persecutors.
Your Majesty, are we to allow this blasphemy? He is saying that the Jews are Christ, and that we Christians are his crucifiers.
I promised him free speech.
Your Majesty, I submit that we do not need to bandy texts. We have only to look around the world to see that the Messiah has not come. A Messiah who does not make the world better is no Messiah. And a Messiah who says it does not matter whether the world is better or not is worse than no Messiah. We Jews say that the world is still unredeemed, and that the Messiah will not come until the world has deserved to receive him.